would be distracting because if something doesn't work, or if it's a little bit off center, it's going to take the eye away from the content that you're trying to present. So I would keep it as simple as possible. Use dividers or formatting as sparingly as needed in order to emphasize certain content, and then make sure that it works in multiple formats. So if you do export it as a doc or a PDF, or if you have to copy and paste it into a website, that it still looks okay. Sometimes I hear people say that if they're going for a design position, that they want to have a resume that reflects that and that looks nice. I would argue now that it's maybe best to leave that to your portfolio or to your website, because like I said, the initial reviewer typically tends to be somebody who's a screener or just a recruiter, and so you may not have the same impact that you like, but if it's distracting or if it doesn't come out right, then it could do more harm than good. So your mileage may vary. If you know for sure you're reaching out directly to a design manager and you want to have something more flashy, then that may be something that you want to do. But in most cases, I say keep it as simple as possible. Okay. So as far as resume structure, you want to structure strategically. Put your best foot forward. Highlight really key information as soon as possible in your resume. And then also you want to keep it to 1 to 2 pages max. And it should be scannable within 90 seconds. So if you think about it, like most recruiters are looking at resumes very quickly. They're very experienced absorbing resumes quickly, and they're just going to be looking for keywords, information, skill sets. So you want to make sure that it can be scanned really quickly and it's easy to see those out with your eye. Don't follow arbitrary rules that you think that need to exist for resumes. I hear people say things like, oh, I have to have an objective or a statement up top, or I need to put things in chronological order, or I need to include all of this because it's required. Those aren't necessarily true. Really what you want to do is, again, be purposeful and tell the best story that you can for yourself, regardless of what people may tell you as far as what these rules are for resumes. And I have here no novels, and that what I just mean for that is don't over explain, don't have paragraphs, don't feel like you need to tell your entire life story. You want to tell a very well-crafted story in support of your job search. And last but definitely not least, you want to be yourself. You want to have authentic, accurate information that you're going to be able to back up once you move forward in the interview process. I would say include relevant volunteer work and projects that show your personality or some of the passions that you have. And then you want to tell your own story. You want your resume to be reflective of where you've been in your career, your experience, your skill sets, and also where your passions are. You don't want to exaggerate your skills or experience at all. It typically leads to a bad experience for the employer, and then also for yourself. And you don't need to pretend to be what you think that they want. Getting a job is about fit for both sides. And if you are inauthentic in your resume or during the interview process, then you're going to end up with a job that probably isn't a good fit for you, and the company won't be able to meet the needs that you have as an employee. So be yourself, be authentic about your experience, your skills, and you will find the job that is the right fit for you that you can then thrive in. Awesome. So let's go ahead and review some resumes. Before we get started, it looks like there's been a lot of questions in the chat. So, but it looks like everyone's on top of that. So I will go ahead and open one up here. Just give me 1 second, and then I will pull this over into the screen. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look. I haven't looked at it. I haven't really taken a look at these yet, so we're going to do this live. But this is the first resume that we received. JavaScript developer with a background in visual art, highly self-motivated and creative individual, excited to contribute to a team, effective at combining creativity and problem solving to develop user-friendly applications. Got a list of technical skills here, including familiar with, relevant experience, and then technical projects. Then we have additional experience with a couple of other positions. Typically looks like a lot of art related positions, and then the education, and then it's volunteer work. So I'm not sure how I want to do this. I'm happy to take a first like pass really quickly. And then if anybody else wants to comment as well, any of the other panelists. A couple of things that stick out to me right away is that there's a little bit of inconsistent formatting, right? And so we're able to see that in the education section, for example, it's not super clear what I'm looking at. So it looks like there's some kind of like, not everything is formatted the same way. So I can see that they have a BA. I see an MA here. This looks like a certificate. And then this is kind of over here. So I think that's a certificate as well. So I would say like that could probably be formatted and broken up a little bit better so it's clear. For example, in this section, you can see very clearly, this is a heading, this is the content, this is a heading, this is the content. Here, it's a little bit messy and it's hard to pull out what exactly it is that I'm looking at. Same thing with the volunteer section. The font is a little bit smaller. It's may have been exported, differently, but that's just something kind of like catches my eye. We're looking at the technical skills section too. Just from a formatting perspective, it's a lot of text right on top of each other, and it's a little bit hard to pull some things out. So I would say maybe like bolding these front end, back end, other, and then having some kind of formatting to make this a little bit easier to read. And I see this sometimes too. It's kind of familiar with. I think that can be helpful. So I like that better than seeing like, rating your skill set. I have seen some people use things like they've just differentiated between what they've used professionally and then what they've used, just as personal learning. And then there's also quite a lot here. And sometimes you don't want to include things that may seem obvious, right? So we have JavaScript, React, CSS, HTML, jQuery, Bootstrap, React context. Then you have Node, Express, MongoDB, Mongoose, JSON, GraphQL API. And then there's a lot of things in here that maybe like are a little bit redundant. Like, do you need RESTful APIs and then also Express.js? I would say that if you have real experience with Express.js, then you're already going to know RESTful APIs. So it almost feels like you're kind of like putting a little bit on there. Same thing with SPA using React. React typically is used for SPAs, so that seems like it may point to a little bit of like a lack of more advanced understanding of what different tools are used for. Same thing with JSON. If you're using Node, MongoDB, you're typically familiar with JSON already. And then usually when the skills, like I do see how in the projects, it does break out the skills that were used for each project. I think that is a great idea because it can show how you actually applied that skill as opposed to just being familiar with it or kind of using it. I will say that these projects look, the thing about going to a boot camp is you tend to have a lot of the same projects. So I recognize a couple of these projects from specific boot camps that people go to. So if you are able to do a project non-related to your boot camp that can differentiate you, I would definitely recommend that as well. Also just kind of seeing here through is like misspelled. So it's just kind of little things like that. This is a really long paragraph. So if there's a way to break that up and make it a little more concise, it would be much easier to scan. Right now, I just am seeing a block of text and it's a little bit hard to parse through. So, so yeah, but there's a couple of really great things here too that I like though. Like these GitHub links are clickable, which is awesome because as a reviewer, I can click on it, I can see the project. There is a lot of things listed. It is structured well in that you have the relevant experience right up front, as well as the technical skills before getting into the additional experience later on. That's a good structure for that as well. I would be almost inclined to put maybe the boot camp up higher and like maybe the boot camp and the Apollo up higher and then doing additional education after the fact. But overall, the structure is well. The layout's not too complicated. There's some formatting things and there's some areas that could be more concise. Does anybody, like Jackie, or does anybody else want to add anything there?
Yeah, that was a good one, Cecilia. Yeah, I think I definitely agree on some of the indentation stuff that you mentioned, and I guess if you scroll down, that's where I'm referring to, like the first part where it was a bit cluttered towards the
Yeah.
end. Where is that part? Oh yeah, the education section where yeah, it's like it looks a little cluttered, and yeah, the intention is broken. Um, Give me 1 minute. Okay, sorry. Yeah, and then over the top, yeah, just go to the beginning of this one. What is it? Yeah, so I think the summary is okay. Curated, effective. Yeah, so it's basically the summary is fine. Like I would just scan it like immediately. I'm just like, telling you how I would review this. And then technical skills, yeah, it's like it just gives me a quick impression of front end, back end, other familiar with CSS. That's kind of good. And now when I kind of get an idea about, oh, like, maybe I'm like, thinking of some things that I want relevant to the job, I would be really looking for relevant experience. So let's say, like, they mentioned React. I would just go and search for relevant project experience which states React. So as it's better, like, maybe either React is kind of highlighted. Again, it's not a must. So sometimes, like Cecilia said, it would be good that, like, the resume is written in such a way that it is scannable. It's like my personal thing. I just kind of get an initial impression within less than, yeah, 10 seconds, the first impression. So it's like, React, I see React, and then I go and look for similar experience about React. So now, like, to just align what I'm saying in the technical skills, there is a mention of React. So now I would go and quickly scan for the first project to be relevant with React, because I want to make sure their recent project, like, if I want to hire a person with React, they are ideally their recent experience, it would be good for it to be React. So now in this case, the first project is React, but there are like multiple lines there. So it kind of gets a little difficult to read, given that I have to like scan a lot of resumes. So this is like a paragraph, right? So avoid writing paragraphs. I kind of like the technical project explanation. So there is like role, there is a state of art, and then it's a full stack. I think this one is okay, like, but yeah, maybe it could have been like written in bullet points. Or sometimes I ask folks to highlight 2 or 3 bullet points, three the better. Sometimes if you have lots to tell, make them five. Yeah, these are some of the things that immediately come to my mind. So 1 or 2 pages, I think it's okay. I am not too particular about it, although, like, it would be good to condense everything within one page, so that, yeah, you have all the information that you want to tell in the first glance, and make sure the recruiter or the hiring manager does not lose that particular piece of information. Yeah, anything from your side, Chachi?
Not particularly. I think I'm used to seeing a one-page resume in the US. Of course, like I also understand that this is different per industry, per region. So that's certainly something to be mindful of, depending on where you're applying to, sort of knowing like what's the norm for that. Yeah, that's my main feedback. I think that technical projects, when I look at those, I typically look for, I guess maybe like the impact of the project over what the project is, and what your role is. So like, why is this project impactful? What it matter? Why does it matter? And I do really like that, the listing of the technology, because that's something, it's good to show that you have experience with a particular technology, especially if that's what the job rec is looking for. I will certainly pick and choose to things that you're comfortable speaking to in the interview process.
Yes, yeah, that's like a very good advice. Or sometimes I think folks, like, just list like a lot of stuff, and yeah, the one disadvantage there is, if you have written something where you're not too familiar with, and then if at all the person reviewing your resume picks that keyword because that is kind of relevant to the job. And if you kind of cannot explain it, that can be like a first red flag sort of say. Again, there would be like more questions following, but in general, yeah, it would be good like to avoid and just write what you're really comfortable. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, really great advice, everyone. Thank you. So let's take a look at the next one. So this one's a little bit different. And so this one is for a software quality assurance tester with 3+ years of experience assessing the quality of software and 2+ years of leading a QA team. Seeking to leverage a diverse technical background and secure a position as an automation engineer. So quick scan, professional experience, program consultant, lead QA tester. So I love the bullet points. I love that I'm seeing numbers. So successfully led a testing team of 8 testers for a project that reached 19,000 customers, reduced 3% of accessibility defects, involved in test activities for web-based projects and one mobile application, coded functional validation, end-to-end regression accessibility testing, developed test summary reports, reviewed requirements, user stories, and product documentation, mentored and trained new QA testers, and then performed automated testing using Selenium. Then we have 2 unrelated positions, an account specialist, client service representative, just kind of bullet point listing here what the job responsibilities were. We have an education, so Bachelor of Science degree, and then additional skills. You can see that in addition to testing, this person also is attending a software development boot camp. They have knowledge of Java and they're learning JavaScript probably in the boot camp. Some code editors, lifecycle management tools like Azure DevOps, Veritas, Micro Focus, ALM. That's great because I would expect that from somebody who does automated testing, accessibility testing, and certifications as well. So initial scan here, I would recommend getting probably removing the unrelated professional experience, making this 1 page and putting the additional skills right after this professional experience, because having worked with a lot of testing organizations at Cypress, being able to understand testing concepts like the different types of testing, user stories, requirements, test summary reports, but then also having an understanding of application development. That is a really strong selling point. And I think that kind of gets missed by the fact that it's on the 2nd page and that it's also not highlighted in the summary. So I would also put in the summary that they are currently learning software development, because that will also just kind of make them a stronger applicant for testing. Like I mentioned before, I love that I'm seeing some numbers, some very key outcomes. I'm also seeing terminology that I would expect from a tester as far as what types of job responsibilities are being done. So that gives me an indication that this person does have experience and knows the key functional responsibilities. I think that it's laid out well, it's easy to read. I was able to scan it very quickly. And then, like I said, I would take this additional skills section, put it right here, get rid of this, and then just kind of put the education right at the bottom. It's 1 page, very impactful. But aside from that, I think that this is a pretty strong resume for a software quality assurance tester. It does say that it's automated testing using Selenium IDE. I think that could maybe be put in a summary too, that they know manual and automated testing, but that's really not too much. That's more like a nitpick. But yeah, any other comments from the rest of the panelists on this resume?
Yeah, on this, what I like is the first section is kind of highlighted. So kind of there is very good readability there. So it kind of immediately draws my attention. So it's also about think about things about magazines or newspapers, how things are certain things are highlighted so that it kind of immediately draws your attention. So this is that piece of section. Or think about web designing. So some principles. So sometimes it's also good to apply that sort of thing. And this kind of, yeah, having that sort of section highlighted, I kind of like it. It kind of immediately makes me read what they want me to read. So it's also think about a resume as a way to tell your story, and highlighting certain key things is also about making people read what you want to read, and then it's the path follows. So ideally about like in this case it's highlighted. Another good way would be to leave trail marks about what to follow. You can highlight certain sections, so it's like as you first scan them, you just like kind of follow the trail. So you see in the highlighted sections, and then you see certain highlighted areas, and try to it's kind of like storytelling. So this kind of like may not become obvious at first, but like now the more you think about it, resumes are also like more about that. So resume is nothing but your marketing pitch. It's like you are the product, and then you're selling yourself, and then it's about what kind of a pitch are you putting down there. So it's all about think about selling yourself, and what information you want to read. Okay. But coming specific to this, yeah, I think Cecilia already mentioned it's like kind of bulleted, so it's kind of nice, and it's like, yeah, neatly written. Yeah, Chachi, would you want to add anything quickly here?
You summed it up. Like I like also how what you said about like speaking to like projects that impact, how telling the story and shaping what you want people to read from your resume. Not, you don't have to list everything, just telling the story.
Yeah. And I did want to point, just address something really quick too, because I saw in the chat questions about people with no experience, or like with no or limited experience, right? And so if we kind of go back to this resume here, looking at this, I would say that this is probably somebody who is a recent bootcamp grad who is kind of working on a freelance project while they're searching for their first full-time job. I also wanted to show here another resume, and we can kind of talk about the differences between these two. This is somebody here who has education, project skills, achievements. I think this is a little bit of a work in progress resume, so there's not any. Like, I think that's like a leadership position that was removed because it's to keep it a little bit more anonymous. But there's not there's not professional experience. So I'm assuming that this is somebody who's kind of, right now they're pursuing their second year of schooling, right? And so if we look at the differences, these are probably two people who have maybe similar or overlapping levels of experience in that they, are newer to the field, then we don't have professional, like full-time experience that they can speak to. But this one, you'll see the achievements section, and that's why I kind of wanted to point out the achievements and the education. So under achievements, we can see that they have, their hacker rank, their code chef rank, they contributed to some volunteer projects. They were selected for some programs. They completed some additional coursework. This shows kind of a level, to me, of going above and beyond the schoolwork itself and wanting to be more involved in the industry and get additional experience. In the education section too, kind of pulling out some of the grades and the rankings. And then the same thing with the projects. So the projects have the tech stacks. It has the main objective. I would love to see, I'm assuming that the GitHub profile would be a link. But I think that this is a good example of somebody who maybe is like a recent graduate in school or doesn't have a lot of professional experience, but can still have good data points around things that they've achieved to show that kind of level. And so it's not that's kind of what we talk about as far as, being able to tell a story with what you can, even if you don't have the professional experience, versus here is like a lot of text. A lot of it feels very familiar and it doesn't feel super organized. So it can be a little bit harder to ascertain, okay, what do they really know? I'm seeing a lot of different things. Whereas this, I think, is a little bit kind of organized in a way that's structured better to tell a story for somebody who doesn't have that professional experience. But yeah, that's kind of, I wanted to just address that. I saw that question, and these are kind of some good examples of not having as much professional experience on a resume. Anybody else want to add anything to that kind of concept there?
Chachi, you want to add? I'm just answering questions from the chat. Yeah, so
sure. Yeah, no, okay. So when I look at like early stage career resumes, definitely looking for like skill sets and a willingness to learn. So not necessarily like, don't expect everyone to have all the like previous experience, but I'm always excited to see sort of projects. And again, like I like to see like what what did you learn from working on this project? It's a little bit harder to describe impact when you're doing projects to learn, but like what did you learn as part of it? Like, how did you challenge yourself or push yourself? I actually really like how in this resume, some of the technologies are bolded because depending on which phase of the resume review you are at, the person reviewing it might be spending like only like 60 seconds looking at it. So highlighting and bolding, using that to emphasize things that are important to you or that you really want to showcase is helpful.
Awesome. Yeah. I love that you called out the bolded part, because that's part of that kind of formatting for emphasis, right? What's going to help me see, like, have things jump off the page. So great. I want to take a look. I was kind of checking for time. Okay, at this one next. So this is a kind of an interesting one. So it's been anonymized. At first when I saw it, I got nervous. I saw an email address, but it's ABCDEFG, so I don't think that we'll have luck reaching out to this person. So this is a web developer with full stack and mobile experience. We see that they have developer experience section and then a professional experience section. In the developer experience, they have mobile app developer, implemented new features to improve the overall functionality and appearance of the app, such as search functionality, updating UI, and map functionality, identifying and resolving bottlenecks, rectifying bugs, and enhancing application performance. They were also a freelance full stack developer presently, as in addition to that. And then they were a student at a coding bootcamp. Completed 22 weeks, 280 hours, full stack web and mobile course, and then attained 5 core frameworks and tools for front-end and back-end development, including Bootstrap, React, React Native, MongoDB, Express, and Node. Under professional experience, we see that they have a kind of an art and design background. So they were assistant design manager, developed 5 e-commerce websites on WordPress and Squarespace, generating 500 unique daily views. Skipping ahead here, managed the design department team of 4. Generated SEO optimized web pages. They were an account executive, and then also a creative director. So quite a bit of experience here. And then on the sidebar, we have programming skills, a couple of things called out: HTML, CSS, Bootstrap, JavaScript, TypeScript, and Python. Frameworks, tools, and others, which is things like, looks like more from their design background: Illustrator, Photoshop, InDesign, Figma, WordPress, BigCommerce. And then under education, we see that they have their coding bootcamp and then a bachelor of design, and then also 2 languages. So initial impressions, one thing off of that is kind of the design of the website. Design of the resume could be a little bit difficult to read on scanning. There's some faint text on a dark background. Depending if someone's using dark mode, that could be something where it is difficult to, like, even a little bit now, I get the letters look a little blurry to me. It's a little bit hard to scan. So that would be something just kind of off the top of my head, is something where I understand they want to have that contrast, but I think making sure that it's accessible and legible is really important. Another thing too is the story of this resume is a little bit confusing. I wouldn't say confusing, but I don't know what type of job this person is necessarily applying for. So it says web developer with full stack and mobile experience, and they're really leaning into the developer experience, but they do have quite a bit of design and marketing experience on the resume as well, and they have other tools on there. So I would maybe want to see a little bit more of like an understanding of, are they looking to leverage their design experience? Are they looking just for developer positions? How do they plan, are they looking to integrate that? Otherwise, maybe reducing the amount that's focused on design, because it takes about half the page, right? And if that's not what they're looking for, then they may want to reduce that and instead spend more time highlighting some of the projects that they worked on development stance, maybe including a project or talking about like when they use TypeScript, when they use React, digging in more into, what they did on those projects or at those companies, and spending more time there. Because right now I'm not quite sure if they're looking for like a design engineer position or a designer, or they, so I think that it could be a little bit more cohesive of a story with the resume too. But yeah, as far as that goes too, like the bullet points are nice. I think that it's a little bit wordy, it could be a little bit more concise. And I think you could maybe highlight some outcomes a little bit better. Like I would like to see search functionality, UI updates, and map functionality maybe broken out into bullet points so it's easier to catch those things. But yeah, that's kind of my initial impression, is just having a more concise story, the formatting of it as far as the colors and the readability, and then just maybe reducing some of the text and breaking out some more of the objectives. Any other thoughts on this one?
Yeah, about, I guess there was a question asked somewhere, I cannot recall, about dark mode. So yeah, I think you covered that one already. I was like mainly looking into the comments and answering there, but otherwise, yeah, let's see. It's like, I normally scan the resume quickly and I'm like looking at it. It's like, it's sleek, it's one page. So it kind of immediately draws my attention to the right side. There is like mention of programming skills, frameworks, tools and others. Okay, like, at this point, tools and others, because there's a mention of Illustrator, WordPress, I would kind of ignore it. Let's say I am looking for a front-end engineer, right? So let's say I'm looking for a front-end engineer, and then there is mention of React. Fine, like the check mark is done. And programming skills, okay, like, there is JavaScript, there is mention of HTML, CSS, so it's like, it's fine. Education is okay. So yeah, there is like relevant education, and language is okay. So I was like naturally drawn to the right side first, maybe because of the structure itself. So it's like, it's kind of readability and how, like, this is like, this is designed. So now I'm looking into the left side, and then, okay, I'm looking for a certain profile, and then they have like, so the first thing is I try to, sometimes when I'm in a hurry, I try to quickly get an understanding about how many years of experience they have. So it's, if I'm looking for a senior, then I quickly want to know their overall experience. If they meet like, a certain number of years of experience, then I'm fine. Okay, I would like, spend additional time reading further. So this is also like something to keep in mind. So maybe not too relevant for beginners, could be relevant for mid-level, right? Targeting at maybe level 2, level 3 jobs. Again, the rankings vary from company to company, or like, mid-level targeting to senior. So it would be good if there is like better readability option, so that your total years of experience would be highlighted. There might be a counter argument about, so what if I mention in the description saying, okay, I have these many years of experience. The one line description that you write would like, would definitely tell, okay, you do have this kind of like relevant years of experience, but then I would be interested to know what exactly projects you worked on, where did you work on, etc. So next to your like sort of experience or company itself, if there is a way where, like, where the reader can quickly get an idea about how many years you worked at one place, that would be like very helpful, and that would just like, would let the reader spend more time reading there. I don't want to like, reiterate on what Cecilia said. She covered most of it, but I was just trying to like, add additional stuff about the things that come to my mind, about the common things that I see, and the common like, misses sometimes, which like, makes, yeah, it's like additional work to read, spend more time on it. So yeah, if it's all about like, doing easing the reader's job and helping them scan quickly and trying to tell the story that you want to tell. Yeah, I just wanted to add these points.
Yeah.
Chachi?
Yeah, no, +1 to all that. I love this formatting. It looks really creative, and it's actually fantastic. I think if you have a personal website, having something like this is really cool. But people still do print resumes in black and white printers. And that is something, we don't think about in the modern age, but to be conscious of when you create a resume is think about how it's going to look in a black and white printer as well. But yeah, I otherwise second everything everyone else has said.
Yeah, I think a little bit of bolding too might help here. Just kind of like drawing out some of the things that they want to highlight would be helpful too. But awesome. So we have about 5 minutes left, I think, right? Just looking at the time. So I know that there's been a lot of questions, and I think that the resumes that are left are kind of similar to what we've looked at so far. So I think I'd like to go ahead and like answer some of the questions that I saw pop up in the chat.
Yeah.
So one of them, it says, I took a career break and want to go back to the workforce. So I'm taking a project management course from Coursera. I am doing a project as part of this course. Can I put that project on my resume? And I would say absolutely, especially if you are able to have a link to maybe a write-up of the project, or if you have some place where you're able to host like screenshots and talk through, like if you do a blog post about what that project is. I actually also did a project management course from Coursera for my CAPM certification. And I included that in my resume at the time that I was, before I got into tech. But yeah, you definitely want to, if you basically, like, I get the question about courses and like, do people value Coursera? Do they value these like kind of online certificates? And my answer is, use what you have, but make it impactful. So if you don't have a degree in project management, or if you don't have professional experience, but you do have the course and the project that you can speak to, then use that. The only thing that I would advise against is I see sometimes people post like 10 different courses that they've done that are all over the place, and with no projects or no experience to try and like back up that knowledge in any way, in a tangible way. And that can be a little bit of a red flag that they just like to do a lot of courses and learn, but not necessarily apply that knowledge. So if you do a course and you can have a corresponding project that you can link to and demonstrate, that is ideal. And then looks like, and what other questions do we see pop up? I'm kind of, I don't know if I know you've been following along really well in the chat. So
I would like to add something. Okay, go ahead, Cecilia. Yeah, I didn't see this question come. Yeah, take this one.
The one that just came up in the chat, or?
Yes, would you be willing to do this for websites? I know there is more content on websites, which will take longer, but guidance with that would also be very helpful if there's enough time. Oh, so Caitlin, do you mean a review of websites?
Yeah, so it sounds, yes, like portfolios. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I think that would be great. Like I mentioned in the beginning, we just wanted to try like a review series. So yeah, we do have like some ideas planned out, but I think, yeah, why not like a portfolio or a website kind of review? So yeah, that would be good. Cecilia, you want to add anything?
Yeah, no, I think this is the thing I would say too is like, in addition to sessions like this, is try to absorb as many resumes and LinkedIn profiles and portfolios as you can. Like, go to the profiles of people who have the jobs that you want and look at how they're presenting themselves. Look at their projects, look at their websites, look at their GitHub, look at their LinkedIn. Like, what are they highlighting? How do they describe themselves? Because chances are, like, if they have the job that you want, that they also had to go through a process to get it. And so you can kind of start to look at what works well and what doesn't work well, and get some ideas too. Yeah, and then there's this question here, if I'm transitioning into tech, how much previous non-tech experience should go on the resume? That is a really, really great question. You should only put experience that you can draw helpful information out of to support your purpose. So I mentioned that I worked in journalism and I worked in financial services. I was a broker. One of the things that I did when I was applying for jobs is, at the company that I was at previously, at Fidelity Investments, we were implementing Salesforce, and I was the project manager to implement that at our branch. So I had to do some technical support. I had to kind of do some training. So I highlighted that specifically, and I also helped with our iPad apps. So even though it wasn't a technical role, I highlighted out the things that I thought were related to technical support or to project implementation, and I put those bullet points only. And then anything that wasn't related or didn't support that story about getting into tech and the job that I wanted, I didn't include it. So, you can include it if it's helpful and you're able to pull things out. I think somebody else earlier in the chat mentioned, or had a question around, like, what if you include communication skills or like, customer service? If you're applying for a success role in tech or a support role in tech, then yeah, like, include that and say that you have experience communicating directly with customers and problem solving and troubleshooting and conflict resolution. Those are great things to highlight as long as they're applicable to the skills of the job that you're applying for. So awesome. So I know that we're at the hour, so I think that's all I got.
Yes, We are at the hour, but I just wanted to bring out another point. Yeah, this is like as well recorded, so if folks have to drop out, that's fine. What I wanted to say is yesterday I came across a very good message on LinkedIn about yeah, there's this person from Apple, like praising that after so many years that she was now leaving Apple and going ahead, but like she did have a career break, and then how how her employer took chance on her, and like she got the job. I had an interview yesterday, and this candidate as well did have a career break, and then as a hiring manager, I was only curious to know why there was a break. So I guess a lot of people are afraid, especially women, taking maternity break, or folks, yeah, for whatever reasons, taking care of someone, or like illness, and coming back. I guess there is this sometimes hesitancy, to or being scared about what will the employer think if you have a break. Yeah, it's I guess we still have to normalize this, and yeah, make sure the break is fine. So yeah, coming back to this yesterday's candidate, she had a break, and yeah, I just like, I was only curious to know why she had a break. Yeah, I asked, but she was like immediately kind of taken aback. And it seems, yeah, she had like a lot of uh, misses with the interviews, mainly because of a break, but she just took a break because she relocated to a new country. And then yeah, it's like she had worked for a long time, and she just, yeah, wanted a break for for 4 to 6 months. I just told her that she doesn't have to be scared, and I just like congratulated her for taking the break, and then just being able to spend time with family, being able to relocate to a new country, enjoy it. And then she was very relieved. So I cannot explain how relieved she was, to know that this was like kind of normalized. So I just want to highlight this. If folks are on a break, and then are looking to come back, it's okay to take a break. It's fine. So yeah, it is like, if your employer doesn't value that part, then it's like, yeah, it's just like, as the saying goes, everything happens for good. You will like find people there who will like value what you've done during the break, if you've looked after someone. So it's yeah, I guess that's about it. This is like close. This topic is really close to me. So yeah, sorry for taking 2 additional minutes, but yeah, happy to elaborate more on this. And yeah, I think it was a great session. Cecilia, thank you so much. You did like such a great job. And Yukti, for yeah, collecting the resumes. Thank you for all
Yes.
the effort you put out there. Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you everyone for all the questions that came along.
Yeah, I love that you said that, because that's definitely something that people, I get asked questions about that, like if I have to leave my career or
Right.
transitioning careers, and we have this imposter syndrome and this stigma, and we have to just try and push through that. And I love seeing there's companies now too that even have return programs. I'm seeing that more and more, where if you do have to take a break and you're coming back into the workforce, it's kind of like a internship, apprenticeship, like re-entering the workforce kind of programs at certain companies. So definitely look into those too if you have, yeah, returnship. Yes, thank you. That's what it's called.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
and so awesome. And yeah, thank you again for all the really great questions and participation. Thank you to Yukti for putting this together with the resumes. It was super helpful. So great.
Thank you. Yes. Have a nice weekend.
Bye
See you.
everyone. Enjoy.